I was watching The Blind Side the other day when a thought crossed my mind. Is the NFL slavery? So I turned to Google to see what all the hot gossip was about, and I found this article by a man named Jack Parkos. In it, Parkos responds to comments made by LeBron James. James said, in the NFL, they got a bunch of old white men owning teams, and they got that slave mentality. And it's like, this is my team. You do what the fuck I tell y'all to do, or we get rid of y'all. As suggested by the title of this article, Parkos disagrees with James's take. Parkos argues that, of course, the NFL isn't slavery. The NFL makes people rich and famous, not the objects of labor. Duh, NBA superstar / millionaire LeBron James. And, like, he's right. I'm not the biggest fan of his tone, but NFL football players aren't the same as American slaves. These guys are athletes living out their dreams. They're not forced to play. If they don't want to play football, they can just leave. Slaves didn't have that same option, right? But this is still a shitty answer, and I intend to go through why it's such a shitty answer in more depth later. But for now, let's just say that Parkos doesn't engage with James's ideas at all. So I want to do that. I want to think through this question of, is the NFL slavery, and see what conclusions we can come to. So let's start with some definitions. The National Football League, shortened to NFL, consists of 32 teams, which can each have up to 53 players. Players on a team will play against players of another team within their conference to earn the chance to compete in even bigger competitions like championships, the Pro Bowl, and the Super Bowl. Players generally have contracts and are paid generously for their participation in the league. As per these contracts, players can also be bought, sold, and traded in between teams. Slavery is a practice whereby one group of people will designate another group of people, usually a different ethnic group, to be property. As property, slaves can then be bought, sold, and traded like any other article of property. Significant here, of course, is American slavery. Up until the Civil War, African slaves were used all throughout America, most notably and most recently in the South. Slaves were often forced to provide physical labor in order to generate a profit for their owners. I also want to note that slave owners generally treated their slaves like animals. Slavery is probably one of the biggest, ugliest stains on American history. So we can conclude right here, like Parkos did, that the NFL is not slavery because the football players aren't literal slaves. We're not going to do that, though, because that's fucking boring. Here's one avenue of thought to continue discussion. In what ways are the NFL and American slavery similar? The physical bodies of these men are being used to generate a profit for their owners. These men can be bought, sold, and traded for the physical labor their bodies can produce. This labor often comes with severe detriment to these men's health. I also want to note that the league has a bad track record on dealing with the health risks, particularly the brain injury risk of playing football. So I'm going to go into that for a second. Professional football generates a lot of concussions, which is very bad for the brain. And high school and college football don't do much better. Repeated hits to the head, like players receive in football, can result in a degenerative brain disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE for short. It's hard to know how many football players have CTE exactly, because it can only be diagnosed in autopsy. But a study in 2017 took the brains of 202 football players and found that 90% of them had developed CTE. And those who had played football for longer had developed more severe CTE. The NFL has denied for decades that there are any serious brain risks associated with playing football. It wasn't even until 2009 that they acknowledged the concussion problem. Since acknowledging this problem, they have made some steps toward making the game safer, like using safer helmets and investing more in concussion research. But all of this considered, it's unlikely that American football will ever be safe for the brain. Back to the list. The league seems to punish players who stir up controversy that can affect their bottom line. In 2016, Colin Kaepernick began kneeling during the national anthem before games in order to protest African American subjugation to police brutality in America. Soon thereafter, his teammate Eric Reid began joining him in his protest. A lot of NFL patrons hated this. They interpreted their protest as pissing on America and disrespecting the national anthem. In 2017, and then again in 2018, Colin Kaepernick was not signed to a single NFL team. None of the 32 teams wanted him. Following this, in 2018, Eric Reid found that he had been drug tested randomly 7 times in 11 weeks. The probability of something like that happening is about 0.17%. The league seems to value profit over the lives and minds of the men who power their entire operation. Team owners are overwhelmingly white. Players are mostly black. This kind of feels like slavery. I finally want to get back to what's so lacking about Parkos' article. Parkos seems to not really care what it was explicitly that James said. Parkos seems to have gotten caught on the sentiment of James's quote. I think when Parkos first saw or heard this quote, his takeaway was, oh, LeBron James thinks that the NFL is slavery. But that's not even what James said. He said that NFL owners have a slave mentality and that they order compliance from their players lest those players be removed. We've seen that that's mostly true. Like, this started off as a bad argument. Were we supposed to assume that LeBron James is under the impression that American slaves were millionaires like NFL players? No, the fuck, of course LeBron James knows that slaves weren't paid for their labor and that NFL players are. Why would anyone pose this as a counter-argument to what James said? I don't know why Parkos wrote this and then put his name on it and then sent it out for publication to the entire world, and I'm not sure I should speculate. I couldn't find a lot about him. He has an author page at 71 Republic where you can see a lot more of his bad takes. I don't have time for them today. I wish you the best of luck with everything. I'd expect someone to make a counter-argument like this, one rushed and devoid of critical thought, when they've been hurt or threatened by an initial argument. Someone attacked football? Oh, I like football, so there's no way that their criticism can have any merit. What do they say? Oh, slavery? Well, football players are rich, not destitute slaves. Shut up, NBA superstar / millionaire LeBron James. He shows no effort or eagerness to talk to James's point at all. He doesn't look at the facts and dig up the history before coming to a conclusion. He makes surface-level observations and comes to a simple one-line answer. I wanted to make this video to do more than just show that the NFL is similar to slavery in certain aspects. I think it's hard to really extrapolate a meaning from a conclusion like that. What should it mean that the NFL and slavery are alike in these ways? I don't fucking know. And I definitely don't mean to insinuate that the NFL is anywhere as morally bankrupt as the practice of slavery. Almost nothing can be as morally bankrupt as the practice of slavery. So, all you NFL fans watching this for some reason, rest assured, I'm not trying to abolish the NFL. I don't really care about it that much. I think the CTE shit is bad and creepy, but that's just a company protecting their profit margin, which is nothing new, and I'm so tired of all of it. I really wanted to make this video because I really wanted to show what I think constitutes a bad argument. A bad response to a point that someone else has made. No argument or opinion is explicitly, automatically, essentially wrong. But some are definitely worse than others, and this one is pretty bad. And it's important to be able to recognize a bad idea when you see one, because people will use them to try to justify bad ideas. It is difficult to consistently construct a good argument for a bad idea, because it's a bad idea. If it wasn't such a bad idea, it wouldn't be hard to argue for it. And the people who make bad arguments know that they're bad. The point isn't to respond to someone else's point. The point isn't to talk to another work. The point isn't to realistically contribute to the discourse. The point of bad arguments is to get the other side to shut up. Here's my piece. I know it's right. You can't be. And that's trash. I forgot the line again. I do that a lot. It is hard filming out here with no laptop. What is my fucking argument? And like, he's right.